The climax of a game is where the exhilaration is. All the excitement, the music, the action, everything is a thrill when the scenes have been sequenced in the right order and executed with perfection. The product of that effort and time will result in a truly unforgettable experience for the player. The climax is how you can make a game truly memorable. Now let's get into the opening, which is way less epic. You don't know the story, the characters, setting, nothing. Yet it's important to deliver the same power found in the climax. The opening is your one chance to impress the player. The perfect music, the breathtaking visuals, the genius level design, the atmosphere all these elements create can be a perfect learning moment for the new player. This is what makes an opening sequence. You have one shot to impress the player and keep them hooked in. And if you're still watching this video, it seems like I've done just that. There are many things not to do while opening a game. Don't start with a long cutscene sequence, don't start with an empty overworld where you have to aimlessly wander around and interact with a certain thing to progress, and keep in mind, the player is brand new to your world. Case in point, my favorite video game of all time, Ōkami, or almost any Zelda. Ocarina of Time throws you into Kokiri Village expecting you to solve a puzzle. You have to mindlessly wander around town trying to find a shield and a sword. Ōkami starts with an incredibly long 20-minute cutscene. Now, because of the type of game Ōkami is, the cutscene is 100% necessary in my opinion. Ōkami is really tough on new guys though. It's really hard to get through the first portion of the game without a guide. Back to Zelda, even the original Legend of Zelda did things all wrong. Now sure, it's an NES game. Video games were still primitive and trying to get things right, so I'll let it slide. But Ocarina of Time has no excuse. You can't say, oh, it's from 1998, because there were plenty of games at that time that did openings correctly, one of which I'll be talking about later. And you can't say, oh, it's preparing players for a puzzle-filled exploration-based adventure, because so is Breath of the Wild, and that game did it correctly. Breath of the Wild starts out in the Shrine of Resurrection. You have 0 cutscenes before this, and no introductions. You hear Zelda's voice simply say, Link, wake up. And then you go to exit the shrine. On your way out, you're introduced to the Sheikah Slate, a major key item in the game. You're also introduced to chests and clothing. At the end of the shrine, you're exposed to the most revolutionary movement in Zelda, the climb. Just like that, the game taught you the very basics with one very straightforward path for the player. Next up, you're exposed to the title card. The music swells and Link runs out into the light, and you see this. One beautiful opening. We're not done yet though. The Great Plateau is your first area. Breath of the Wild is a completely open world game with an incredibly large map, but luckily, we're not just thrown into it. We're in the Great Plateau. We need a key item to leave the Great Plateau, and that item requires a bit of work to get. After the title sequence, you see the old man. You need to make way over to him. On your way, you see a stick that is deliberately put in the middle of your path, just so the player will walk over it and pick it up. This continues until you fully understand the basics. This is when you're allowed to leave the Great Plateau into the incredibly vast open world of Hyrule. Here's a similar game to Breath of the Wild, do things completely differently. Ghost of Tsushima. Ghost is an open world game just like Breath of the Wild is, but it also has a very unique combat style and stealth mechanics. When I first started Ghost of Tsushima, my jaw dropped. It was literally so simple, even simpler than Breath of the Wild's opening, but everything was perfect. I kid you not, as soon as the title card faded off the screen, I paused the game, went on YouTube, and watched the whole opening again. You start on Komoda Beach, The Mongols are invading and the samurai are ready to fight. The battle starts and you learn the basics of horse riding and the basics of the field. After the battle, you find yourself unconscious, saved by a villager in a nearby village that is currently being ravaged by the enemy. You and the villager need to sneak out of the village to find your weapons and gear. It is here you are introduced to the stealth. Once you sneak out and find your weapons, the protagonist Jin reminisces his childhood as a samurai in training. He enters a flashback of him sparring with his uncle, and it is here we learn the basics of battle. After the flashback, the villager helps you steal a horse and ride away from the Mongol-occupied Komoda beach. In the span of about 20 minutes, you have learned the 3 basic elements of the game, about exploration in the field, stealth, and battle. Now you ride. The music is really gentle. As the credits go on, the music starts to rise as Jin approaches an open field. All of a sudden, the player assumes control, the aspect ratio opens up, and the music swells into the main theme as Jin rides out into an open field while the title card fades into screen. Take a look. It doesn't last long, but the open field is perfect. You need to save your home, and this title card tells you exactly what you need to do. It tells you what to do, though, not how to do it. And that is what makes this opening a masterpiece from all aspects of art. Both of these were examples of teaching-based openings with a lot of gentle beauty with the calm but effective music. Final Fantasy VII did things a bit differently. Going back to how I was talking about Ocarina of Time, Final Fantasy VII came out a year before Ocarina of Time did, and it has an incredible opening. You start calm. Final Fantasy VII is not an action-packed, batshit insane story. The opening starts out gentle, with Aerith being the first character you see. She's in a dark alley observing a broken pipe leaking with Mako, an energy source in the game. She's startled by a noise and leaves. We're introduced to Midgar. Right off the bat, we're introduced to its cruelty, and it sets an image for the lonely, ruthless, and polluted city of Midgar. Next, the camera pans out as the music starts up. The camera zooms all the way out as the music goes full into title sequence mode. The music has a very relieving and happy sound to it, almost like it's hopeful. The music fades into the first theme, and the camera zooms into the opposite direction. As it zooms in, the music gets epic, the character starts popping out, and the music builds up and explodes into the first theme called Bombing Mission, as protagonist Cloud Strife jumps off the train. The first mission: break into a reactor and blow it up. This is epic. This is Cloud's first mission as a terrorist/mercenary. As he learns the basics, so do you. They actually don't even give you a tutorial. They put you into a very simple, basic battle where you learn the system yourself. It's really simple, you get it down in seconds. And it's even better in the remake with a faster paced feel and an insane remix of Bombing Mission. This is strategy 2 of how to create an opening. Bring the hype. These were 3 examples of incredible openings. There are many others, probably from games I haven't even played yet, but you get the idea. Out of the 3 examples I gave today, I think Ghost of Tsushima was my favorite. The way Jin's character does unnecessary things like scoot over and stroke the grass, the way the 3 elements are presented and taught to the player in a really smart way, and it's all bundled up in a brief moment of perfection. If you want to capture a player's attention, then this is what you need to do. If you have a slow opening, players will drop your game. Most of the time, games are dropped near the beginning. You have all the money. People are willing to buy your game. You have their attention, but that attention won't last if you fail the first impression. All it takes is that legendary first impression to get them through the entire journey.